Hi everyone, it's Ian here from IBI Performance Coaching. Today we're going to be talking all things calf training, and we're going to be focusing on things that you can do at home with very little equipment or really zero equipment other than the things that you naturally have in your house, but you can still get great results from. So stick with us, you're going to learn a lot from this video. Let's start by talking about the very skinny elephant in the room, which is that I probably have the worst calves of any person who talks about fitness on the internet. Maybe not the absolute worst, but probably up in the at least in the top five, if not the top three. I'm a very tall person. I'm 6'5", 196 centimeters. I have super thin ankles. I can very nearly put my fingers around the lower part of my lower legs, just above the ankle. It's not great. It's not great. And so you're probably wondering, how the heck am I supposed to trust somebody who starts a video on calf training by saying that they have the worst calves? Why should I listen to this person? Well, let me make the counterintuitive, but completely, in my point of view, completely rational argument that I am the person you really should listen to. Okay, let's think about it with an analogy. Imagine you are looking for advice on how to maintain or grow hair on your head. Are you going to listen to some guy like Fabio? I might be dating myself here, but some guy like Fabio who has a gorgeous mane of hair? If your answer to that is yes, then you are falling prey to, I don't exactly know what this bias is, but it's like the bias of the thing, listening to the person who has the thing that you want rather than the person who can help you get what you want. Because the person who can help you get what you want, in the case of more hair on your head, is the person who also suffers from some form of male pattern baldness or something like that. Someone who else is who is dealing with genetic limitations regarding hair, and they've tried a bunch of different things and they've found things that work for them. Now, they may not have, and they probably don't have, the most gorgeous head of hair, but the person who has the gorgeous head of hair probably didn't have to do anything to keep that head of hair. They probably could have done anything and kept it. They probably could have done the worst possible things and kept it. That's just the genetic lottery. It is what it is. If you're one of those people who says, oh, the genetic excuse is just that, it's an excuse, and it's an excuse for not working hard, I challenge you to think of a single calf training program in existence that I haven't tried. I've tried everything, and so the stuff I'm going to be presenting to you here today is the stuff that has worked for me despite the manifold limitations that I'm dealing with. Let's jump into it. The first thing we need to understand about calf training, and one of the primary reasons why calf training can offer so few results, so little return on investment, if you're not already sort of blessed as far as calves go, is that these muscles are primarily made up of type 1 muscle fibers. They're slow twitch muscle fibers. And slow twitch muscle fibers have limited potential for growth. They have some potential for growth, but it is quite limited. Your soleus, which is the muscle that lies sort of underneath, it's almost like the shelf muscle. That one is 60 to 80%, depending on genetic makeup, 60 to 80% type 1 slow twitch muscle fibers that don't really grow. The gastrocnemius, the one that is easier to grow, that's still 50%, depending on your genetic makeup, 50% slow twitch muscle fibers. So again, not a whole lot of growth out of those. So some of us are going to have more slow twitch, some of us are going to have more fast twitch. And a lot of that, that's not, we don't get to make that up. We don't get to decide that. There is, the potential to sort of develop a slow twitch into a more of a fast twitch muscle fiber. But again, that's genetically determined and it's going to be limited in some people. Having said that, this recognition about the kind of muscle fibers we're dealing with here is going to guide our training recommendations, the recommendations that I'm making today. The other thing we have to recognize is what kind of role the Achilles tendon plays in calf training. People who just spam calf raises, it's sort of like these bouncy calf raises, will tend to get very little out of that calf training because of the role of the Achilles tendon. It's a very springy, very powerful tendon. And as you're descending quickly in a calf raise, if you don't take some time in the bottom position to allow the tension that's accumulated in that tendon to dissipate, then your return up, the positive portion of the calf raise rep, is often going to be largely attributable to the stretch response, the tension that's built up in the tendon. It's the tendon sort of springing back or returning to its original shape after being stretched that's moving you as much as, if not more than, the muscles in your actual calves. And so, you can't really train the Achilles tendon all that effectively by doing that. So you end up putting a whole bunch of load on the tendon, not getting a whole bunch of stimulus for the muscles. So we want to avoid that. Now, the kind of training I'm going to be suggesting here will avoid that. And the first recommendation that I have is table isometrics. The seated calf raise machine is something that most good gyms will have, but not all of us belong to a gym, and I know the gym that I belong to doesn't have a seated calf raise machine. So the recommendation that I have is to find a table that you can use, where you're basically just pressing the upper part of your thighs into the bottom part of the table, the undercarriage of the table, and consistently doing an isometric. This is what we would call an overcoming isometric, pushing into that table. This is going to hit the soleus muscle, again, that underlying sort of shelf muscle, which is not the most important muscle for calf size, but it is obviously an important one. It's a bit like the brachialis in your upper arm, the muscle that you hit when you do bicep sort of hammer curls that helps to cause the bicep to pop out a bit more, to appear larger than it is. The soleus serves a similar function for your calf. So we do want to hit this. So all we're doing, pressing your legs into the table. If the table's too high for you to do this effectively, just put something under your feet, a book or something like that. If the table's too light, just lean your elbows on top of the table. This kind of training, because it's isometric, if you really want hypertrophic results on it, you're going to want very long holds. I would recommend at least 30 seconds, but you could go 30 seconds at 50% exertion, 30 seconds at 75, and then the final 30 seconds at 100%. Then you're getting a 90-second set, and by the end of that 90-second set, you should be thoroughly, your calves should be, your soleus at least, should be thoroughly wiped out. Okay, great option, easy to do it at work, do it wherever. Okay, next one we have is calf raise holds. So here we're just going into a calf raise and we're holding at the top position, fully contracted, really squeezing as hard as you can at the top. This one obviously is going to target the gastrocnemius, but be careful with these that your knees are fully locked out, because if your knees are even the slightest bit bent, you're going to be putting a lot more tension through the soleus than through the gastrocnemius, and the gastrocnemius is really the one that we want to target for building size in our calves. So just going up to the top position and holding. You can also do this single leg if you prefer, if you would rather, it doesn't take as long. These I've had a lot of effect with. They've been very good, easy to get sore from doing these if you're not used to them. And both of these isometric approaches are really good precisely because of the density of type 1 muscle fibers in your calves. The type 1 muscle fibers, they are slow twitch. That does not mean that they fire slow. It means that they're slow to get tired and also fast to recover. So something like a typical calf raise, one of the issues with it is that your slow twitch muscle fibers can often recover sort of intrastet while you're still doing it if you're not putting enough force through them, that they're consistently getting more fatigued. An isometric contraction like this doesn't allow them that time or that the freedom to recover intraset. And so you're just going to make them ever more fatigued. Okay, so both of these are great options. The next option we have is called, I'm calling it the plyo raise. It's essentially a calf raise, except you're doing it plyometrically, meaning you're trying to put sort of as much force as you can as quickly as you can. It's accelerationist. You're The way to think about it is that I want you to lock your knees out and then without using your upper legs at all, try to leave the ground. Try to jump with nothing more than the power of your calf muscles contracting. This one, again, you can do it anywhere. And because you are trying to basically put as much force as quickly as you can through your lower legs, you are much more likely to be activating all of the muscle fibers, recruiting all of the motor units in your calf muscles in order to create those high levels of force required to leave the ground. Now, if you can actually leave the ground, either you have tremendously powerful calves or you're relatively low body weight compared to your calf strength, or some combination, right? Because I certainly can't. Especially, again, lock your knees on this, and it'll make all the difference. Okay, so spam these, do them whenever. I do them while I'm cooking, I do them while I'm waiting in line. Great exercise. Next up, we have the wall lean calf raise. So what you'll see here is I'm leaning against the wall. My forearms, my elbows, my sort of hands are pressed against the wall, even if you can't see that. And I'm able to create a real stretch and go through a real great range of motion with my calves here, and a range of motion where I can sort of intraset, intra-movement even, I can adjust the resistance that I'm giving to my calves, by how much I press into the wall with my forearms and elbows. Uh, I can make this exercise so difficult that I can't even get one repetition. So it would be an overcoming isometric in that case. I can make it just difficult enough that I can get 10 reps, and then I'm unable to get that 11th rep, so I'm able to hit momentary muscular failure in a short amount of time. And I really like this one as well because of the ability to really get a good stretch at the bottom. I feel like the calves benefit a lot from that, from experiencing that stretched position. Get that really stretched position and take all the momentum out of the movement. No bouncy calf raises here, because again, that we want to take out the influence, the power of that Achilles tendon. So really stretch it out at the bottom. And at the end of a set like this, I'll absolutely include something like a tension stretch where I'm at the bottom, I'm fully stretched out, and I'm trying to do another one. I'm doing essentially an overcoming isometric, but in a state where my calves have already been fatigued highly, and so they're unable to output much force, and I'll hold that position for at least 10 seconds, 20, even 30 seconds. This will help flush a lot of blood into the muscle. It'll help really accumulate time and proximity to fatigue, which, as I will say until my dying day, is really the stimulus, where the stimulus for hypertrophy comes from. Okay, now we're going to shift gears a little bit. We have a couple more exercises to talk about, two more actually. But in order to understand how these make sense, we need to understand that our ankle is very similar to our wrist. This is something that I learned from martial arts. If you're learning how to do a wrist lock or an ankle lock, they follow the same principles. They're both what we call floating joints, in that they can move in all of these different ranges of motion. Your body basically has three different kinds of joints. There are floating joints. They have ball joints or ball and socket joints, which is your shoulder and your hip, and then you have hinge joints, which are your elbows and your knees. So floating joints, if you want to train the muscles that are attached to one side of a floating joint, like your forearm muscles, think about the things you would do to train your forearm muscles. Whatever you would do to train your forearm muscles are probably similar things that you should do for training your calf muscles. And so we have things, well, think about that, right? How would you train your forearm? I mean, we do this, right? The wrist flexion. That's essentially a calf raise. Okay, but you would also want to do this, right? Extension. Well, there we have a tibialis raise. This is a very important point, or sorry, a toe raise that targets the anterior tibialis, which is the muscle that runs up the front of your leg. People talk about that as being like the hamstring of your calf, but really it's much more like whatever the muscle is on top of your forearm of your calf. And this is a very important one. This is also one that is much more of a fast twitch collection of muscle fibers. So this one, doing the alternating toe raises will work out well because the tibialis anterior doesn't recover quickly, unlike the muscles in the back of the calf. So you can also do this against the wall and raise both toes and sort of hold them. Isometrics work well for either kind of muscle fiber, but the alternating is a great option as well. Again, I'll do this very often when I'm just standing in line waiting for something to happen. Okay, here are a couple other exercises though that I really have not seen many people talk about as far as calf training is concerned. Again, how would you train your forearms? Well, one of the major ways we train our forearms is grip training, right? You grip something, squeeze it, and you activate all sorts of muscles in your forearm. Well, toe gripping is something that very few people talk about or do, but it's tremendously important. Now, toe gripping, if you and give this a try. If you don't believe me, try gripping something with your toes and tell me it doesn't activate muscles throughout your calves. I can feel it work basically every muscle that I can identify in my calves. And if you can't, it means you probably lack some sort of muscle, mind-muscle connection there, which is something to certainly work on. Now, toe gripping is going to activate two muscles that are specific to the toes, to that movement, to that flexion movement of the toes. These are called the flexor digitorum longus. This is the set of muscles that flex the four smaller toes, and then something called the flexor hallucis, probably hallucis longus, which is the one that activates your big toe. These are two different muscle groups, which is why, as you'll see in this video, I can flex my small toes and lift my big toe, or flex my big toe and lift my small toes. Both things that you want to be practicing. But this sort of toe gripping also activates the muscles, the gastrocnemius, the soleus, because of the requirement for stability. So it will activate basically everything down there. Give this a try. It's something you can do on any sort of surface. I like personally doing it with sneakers on, because the insides of sneakers, the inside insoles of sneakers are often soft, and it's like squeezing a tennis ball with your fingers, but squeezing it with your toes. Even if this doesn't give you huge calves, it's going to give you better balance, better sports performance, better power generation. If you're someone who throws balls or throws punches, or this sort of thing, it all starts with your toes and your feet. Okay, the next one that I don't hear anyone talking about is rocking. Now, one of my biggest issues when I'm trying to develop my calves is my ankles. I have like very small ankles, and I'm firmly of the belief that your body will not let you develop strength in a muscle beyond the point where the joints can support that strength. I mean, if it were to do that, you're going to end up injured. But I think there's a lot of sort of internal mechanisms that put the brakes on strength and power development beyond that point. So think about something like a deadlift, right? Even if your posterior chain has the strength to perform a certain amount of weight on the deadlift, if your grip cannot handle it, then your body will not allow you to lift the weight off the ground. How many times have I tried to lift a weight without sort of something like a wraps or something like that, and it's like you just can't get it off the ground. But then you put wraps on and suddenly you can pick it off the ground, right? It's like your body recognizes, oh, my grip strength is stronger here. Well, I think that there's a lot of like a similar mechanism. If your ankles and your feet are really weak, your body is not going to let you develop a whole lot of size and strength in your calves. And so we need to develop strength in our ankles as well. As a former volleyball player, man, I've dealt with so many ankle sprains on both of my ankles, and it recurs occasionally. Even if I don't hurt my ankle, it just flares up. I have so much scar tissue in there. So this sort of rocking movement that you'll be seeing on your screen has really helped improve my stability and strength of my ankles. And so when I'm rocking out to the sides, the outer edge of my feet, this is called eversion, and it employs a whole new muscle called the fibularis longus. Then when you go to the inside, called inversion, this is the tibialis posterior. Both of these muscles, and the same can be said about the muscles that flex your toes, both of these, the inversion and the eversion muscles, they are deep muscles of the calves. They're muscles that run underneath the soleus and the gastrocnemius. And so by developing them, you're creating more size. You're essentially creating some sort of like an inner, I don't know, cushion or something like that that pushes out all the muscles that you have on the outside, making the whole thing appear bigger and certainly building its resilience, its stability, its ability to perform. So if you are not training this, you are predisposing yourself to injury and you're limiting your performance, if nothing else, even if it doesn't come back to the effect on muscle growth. All right. All of the stuff that I've covered, all of the exercises I've covered here are exercises that you can do as incidentals. Throw them in whenever, wherever you find the opportunity. Given that so much of the muscles in the calves are the slow twitch muscle fiber types, they're going to recover quickly, so you can hit them very often. It's not like you're going to, when you get sore there, you get sore there for a long time. But it tends to be the case with calf training that you adapt to training very quickly, you stop getting sore, and you can basically hit it all the time. And I've heard lots of accounts of people who, nothing worked until I trained them every day for 3 months straight or something like that. Well, I tried it. It didn't work for me. I didn't gain any size at all. But these exercises are the ones that I have found. I can tell that my calves are stronger. I can tell that my lower legs are more powerful, more resilient, even if the hypertrophic gains have been limited. But this is a genetic thing more than anything else. Okay, so I hope that you found this useful. If you want to check out programs that are home-based, that require very little equipment, very little time, most efficient, and very, very effective, you got all those links down below. All right, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate everybody who gives me their time, and I extra appreciate everybody who does the things that support this channel. So go out there, and you know what I say at the end here. Excellence is a habit, and elite performance is just a choice. So that's it. Go make that choice. All right. Have a fantastic day, everyone.